Now, let's talk about Nigeria. The largest economy on the African continent, the most populous black nation, has been grappling with economic challenges over the past few years. And of course, that translates to the hardship that most Nigerians are living with, especially one that has been compounded since the removal of fuel subsidy. We've seen record high inflation numbers, and of course, that is quite telling as Nigerians continue to lament and decry the surge in food prices, commodity and everyday prices of goods like sugar, flour, garri, maize, and all of the other items, which has come to a head as we've seen some noticeable frustrations being expressed in marches and protests, to say the least, one in Niger State and one also in Kano and in Taraba. What does this signpost? A failure of government, or that the economic challenges are just simply overwhelming, that the government can barely do enough to really address it? And what is the place of price control in this conversation as a measure to perhaps mitigate the impact that the current inflationary trend is having on the Nigerian population? The government says, let's weather the storm, it will be over soon. But how soon will that be? Let's get some more insight and join us on the program this morning is Baba Yusuf, who is a strategist, policy analyst, and group CEO of Global Investment and Trade Companies. Good to see you this morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Daybreak. It's been a while.
Good to see you
Happy
again.
New Year. I think if I say Happy New Year, it's still in place, even though we're still in February.
Yes, very much proper. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
We're beginning to sound like a broken record when we keep talking about what the economic situation is like. But give me a sense of what you think is happening. We've clearly seen Nigerians, express this frustration over and over. And now we're beginning to see pockets of protest here and there just to drive home the message that we can't take it anymore. What are your thoughts about these developments?
Well, the developments for me, I see them from two angles. First of all, like you said, it's a reflection of our current realities. The second, and which is most important to me and to Nigerians, because which is reflected by their actions, is that Nigeria is at one of its highest politically conscious state. Nigerians are highly, highly politically conscious.
Why do you say that?
Because Nigerians are telling the leaders now that they will no longer agree to be taken for granted. And that is how you are seeing pushbacks, by the populace across the states. What happened in Minna yesterday and what is, manifesting in Kano and Taraba, we expect to see much more of that. Is a culmination of issues, Abdullahi, over the past, let's say, 8 years. But more importantly, since the resumption of duty by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a man that came, people have high expectations of him, and also he raised the bar by making a lot of promises and said we shouldn't even cut him some slack, that he's capable, he's able, and he's ready. And indeed coming at a very critical moment in the history of this country, when after 8 years of President Buhari's administration, all the indices are looking negative, from insecurity to economy and all the other factors. So Nigerians are tired, and it is the truth. And one of the factors, interestingly or paradoxically, the manifesto of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the renewed hope. Hope keeps people alive. Hope keeps people to look forward to the future. But it appears that there is no hope anymore. The mental state of mind of Nigerians is deteriorating every day. The rate of suicide, the death rates due to frustration and other factors, hypertension and every other thing, is increasing, which is a reflection, including the infant and maternal mortality, which is a reflection of our society. And the people are tired because while we agree that we are facing economic headwinds, which are factors of global, situations, but we also see leaders that are supposed to show circumspection, sense of responsibility, empathy, and maturity in the way and manner they conduct themselves, behaving as if they are in an entirely different country or environment than Nigerians. They will tell you...
When you say that, what do you mean exactly?
You know, the leaders will say Nigerians should continue to weather the storm. But you see government officials at the highest level that have come to work in this government, you know, spraying dollars, displaying affluence, you know, and wanton irresponsibility, for want of a better phrase. In the face of this situation, day in, day out, it is as if, you know, because there are no consequences, as if it's nothing. And even though we saw Mr. President trying to, you know, take some actions to discourage this, it is not stopping, it's only escalating, but because there has been no consequences. So Nigeria, it will be very difficult for Nigerians, even children, for us people that have kids at home, even on the street, the children are now calling government to question with regards to the integrity of government. Because you can't tell us to stay hungry while you are living as if we should be picking dollars on the streets of Nigeria.
How much of what is going on right now is a function of a failing government policy, and how much of it is something existential, especially when we factor in the global economy? I mean, countries like Argentina, for instance, are witnessing 200 plus percentage points in terms of inflation, and there are many more countries like that. I mean, looking at the state of the global economy, how much of what is happening domestically is as a result of that, and how much of it is because the policies or the reforms that the Tinubu administration is trying to put in place is just not effective as you would expect?
Thank you very much for that question, Abdullahi. You are right. I mean, to add to an example, Turkey. Even a day before yesterday or yesterday, we saw the chief of the Federal Reserve of America talking about the situation they are with inflation. So truly, there is a global economic malaise due to geopolitics and other factors. No doubt about it. And we cannot isolate or insulate ourselves from these vagaries, the global economic headwinds and social, you know, economic issues and all that. But that being said, countries that want to be responsible and want to be forward-thinking have been demonstratably taking actions, whether it is policy, whether it is execution of that policy, whether it is policy coherence, whether it is displaying sense of responsibility to its people or to their people. We see countries moving in that direction. Every week we see, like, for example, the United Nations, the United Kingdom, France. These are world powers, including China, coming forward to speak to their people. The optics are very important, not the optics of red herrings, but the optics of reality. And while they are doing it, they are telling the people the next step they are taking to bring succor to the people, demonstrating that indeed the mandate is for the people. Now contextualize it to Nigeria. With these overarching global issues, one would expect leaders to be, like I said earlier, to be more circumspect, more practical and pragmatic in terms of policy formulation. First of all, in terms of strategy, because everything should flow from a strategy. And if you have a strategy, because you cannot fight this situation with knee-jerk impulsive activities, Abdullahi. We expect people to be sure-footed because they would have studied the situation, they've looked at projections, and they will come with that consciousness of the situation that is global and the inherent domestic issues that are self-inflicted injuries by past administration. Interestingly, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration is a continuation of an all-progressive Congress administration. So they have more than any other government to tell people that the choice they made in terms of APC as a government is the right choice, you know, for the APC adherents. And for those that are not APC adherents, to demonstrate to them that, yes, we are the right people in place. But the disposition and consciousness is the same. So in policy making, I say it with all sense of responsibility, there's a lot of detachment from reality. In terms of that. You don't think it's too early
to conclude on that note?
And I would say no. As a strategist and as a policy, formulator myself and an advocate of policy coherence, there is what you call the short, mid to long term, expectations and impacts, Abdullahi. I am not one of those that is expecting El Dorado, to happen now, or a complete turnaround. But there are things that you call the indicators of days to come. That, in the 6 months, that are coming, we see some actions that will further engender trust, confidence, and hope for the people. Like I said earlier, if government in this disposition shows prudence, shows a higher level of accountability, and Mr. President is more firmer with higher political will in dealing with these issues, I tell you, even if the economy doesn't turn around, Nigerians are one of the most supportive citizens you can find anywhere in the world. We are patient. We try as much as possible to be understanding. And that has been taken for granted for too long.
The government says there are no quick fixes.
Absolutely.
And that this is necessary. What we're going through right now is necessary. It's going to be darkest before it's dawn.
Absolutely.
Do you believe that that in itself is symbolic of what needs to happen, regardless, for us to perhaps stop the bleeding and then turn a corner economically in this country? And this pain that we're going through right now is necessary in a way, or unavoidable?
Yes, it is. But then for how long have we been told that it's an unavoidable thing for us? You know, everybody has a timeline to live in this earth or in this world, Abdullahi. You cannot tell somebody that was 10 years old in 2015, male or female, that things will get better, and in 2024, about 9 years later, that person is 19 or 20, that person should be patient for another 10 years. What am I saying? Much as I agree there are no quick fixes, there should be sure-footedness in transiting out of this doldrum. We want to see, I mean, like you said, sounding like a broken record, we want to see cost of governance at the top level. We want to see people, being prosecuted for corruption. We want to see government, not just, and I'm not just talking about the executive, including especially, in fact, the legislature and the judiciary. You hear all manner of things in all these arms of government that are behaving as if for us, it should be a long, hard road, but for them, it shouldn't be like that.
You think the leadership and the followership are not on the same page?
Absolutely. It's very obvious, Abdullahi. It goes without saying, because people are still... I give you an example. I heard there was government officials in this December. We saw what happened in the COP event, COP 28. And that forced the hand of Mr. President to take some drastic action, which is commendable, but we expect sustainability and we expect consequences. But moving forward, in December, most of these government agents traveled out of this country in droves, paying lots of dollars to travel with their family, paying business class, paying first class, to travel even with their domestic aides, to go and enjoy the Yuletide and come back. Do you know the kind of money a family that will travel with his wife, with 3 children and the domestic staff, including their domestic staff, they travel with their domestic staff?
Is there a chance that some of these people have already made their money outside of government and they have every right to spend it as they see fit? That it might not necessarily be a government-sponsored trip, for instance.
You see, Abdullahi, we need to take governance seriously, with all due respect to you, Abdullahi. Come on. You can be a billionaire, but when the issue of governance is different, when you come into governance, your disposition, your behavior, your character should reflect responsibility as a public officer. Otherwise, stay where you are as a billionaire and spend all the money the way you can. So it's not about the money in your pocket alone. It's about how you view Nigerians. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu campaigned and his contenders, the likes of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, His Excellency Peter Obi and others, fought tirelessly to get this mandate. President Tinubu got this mandate. And whether you are a billionaire or not, when you are called to service, you are supposed to behave in a manner that you are a public, quote-unquote, servant. So you should demonstrate circumspection, like I said, and maturity while you are at it, so that you don't come across as an entitled person. And I think that is the problem with the political class in Nigeria. This sense of entitlement is the issue. So there is a total difference between you have a bunch of money and then you still want to serve Nigeria. If you want to do that, your behavior and your actions should reflect respect for the people you are serving.
The Kano State Governor, Abba Kabir Yusuf, on this particular issue, while speaking to the business community in Kano, said he's going to meet with the president to discuss the situation because it is not only undermining the business community, it is having a devastating impact on the lives and livelihood of Nigerians. Let's talk about the sub-nationals. Do you think they've been, dead weight in regards to this particular conversation about providing succor? Because a lot of the focus has been on the federal government, and it seems to me that the states appear to be part of the crying population also, with the governor saying that he has to meet the president on this particular issue.
Very valid question, Abdullahi. I will answer the question from two perspectives. First of all, to commend Governor Kabir Yusuf for coming to engage the governor is the right thing to do. We want to see governors coming to engage the governor. The president, one, for the optics, two, it puts more pressure to, in case Mr. President has been insulated from reality, the governors have the locus and have the insulation to speak truth to power over and beyond special assistants, advisors, and ministers. But that being said, the governors, for years, have been in the core of the problem of Nigeria. We are living, we are practicing, true federalism, quote and unquote, whatever it is. And I dare say, the governors of Nigeria are amongst, if not the most powerful governors in the world. They have the access to the money, the opaqueness with which they operate, and they run down the states, serially. And that is part of the problem. I agree with you, and I'm a proponent, and I've written variously in my columns and engagements that there is too much focus at the federal level. And there is need for citizens, the civil society organizations, and all critical stakeholders to also have more direct and peripheral vision at the subnationals. Because the governors are just having a ball for a and what they do is, the moment there's a pressure, they point a hand at somebody, up there and say, there's a president, I'm going to see him, or we have engaged the president, look at the president, look at the president. So more or less diversionary tactic from the issues. The governors also campaign, and they are given a mandate, they have a budget, they have opportunities to create wealth. In fact, during their campaign, you hear how they loftily talk about creating wealth, for their people and all that. The moment they are sworn into office, you don't see those things happening. And you see them cap in hand every other day in Abuja, chasing Mr. President to do everything for them, including cleaning their homes. And to me, it is highly, highly disappointing. And it is high time that people should start doing what they are doing in the states now. But not just to carry placard and call Mr. President to come and solve their problem. They have their governors also to engage constructively, decisively, consistently, to pull out these governors out of their seat to do the needful, because they're out for this. The next thing you hear is they don't have money, they are owing. You know the numbers before you took the mandate. We want to see capacity, competence, and readiness to pull people out of the doldrums. And it is the people that will ensure this happens going forward.
Right. As someone said, governance is not just about resource managers, it's also about being resourceful as a leader.
Absolutely.
Yourself. All right, let's bring in our virtual guest who is joining us virtually via Zoom from Enugu. Dr. Maduka is a farmer, and he's also the General Secretary of the National Agriculture Commodity Project and the President and Founder of Community Allied Farmers Association of Nigeria. Dr. Maduka, good morning to you. Thank you most kindly for joining us on Daybreak. Now, interestingly, the agriculture sector has been at the center of most of the conversation we're having right now about the impact of inflation in the country. The grains are no longer affordable, and Nigerians are not happy about that. What can you tell us as an insider regarding this development, and what you make of the economic environment in total?
I'm not in Enugu. I've left Enugu. I'm in my village right now. I'm in Upulu. Upulu is in Dunukọ local government area of Anambra State.
Right.
You can see behind me. You can see, I try to be not friendly. Straight to the question was put well, that in the last 2-3 years, nothing has happened in the agricultural sector of Nigeria. after the collapse of the Uncle Brothers program of President Muhammad Buhari and the coming in of Senator Ahmed Bola Tinubu administration. A lot of intervention has been put on hold, and that has really affected cultivation by smallholder farmers, knowing full well that these people are the engine room of the Nigerian agricultural sector. And if you know also, there's a lot of insecurity challenges across the nation where farmers are made to pay ransom to harvest their produce at the end of harvest. And that has really put a lot of fear on those can no longer go to the farm, fear of the unknown and then fear of losing their lives. And even when there's an intervention of the government, the insurance companies are not really doing what they're supposed to do. Even when you have losses, nobody compensates you. And the farmers are also not also considered or, taken into the planning of most of these programs, especially even when it relates to life insurance. No farmer is life insured. If you are killed in the farm, you are gone and you're gone forever. Your family will be there to mourn you till eternity. And these are very, very big challenges. I came to the village purposely this morning because we are an agrarian area, and because in the southeast, we have a lot of developmental projects. People are developing lands, building houses. Most of the farmland have been overtaken by estate developers. And these are really also affecting food prices, especially in the southeast. Knowing fully that most of the food we consume here in the south is being brought from the north. And I came here purposely because some individuals want to bring developmental projects to our communities. In the course of developing those lands, they have to, destroy or remove some of the farms that are in their various land allocated to them. So, but one of our brothers who happens to be a well-known individual, Prince Dr. Ateze, came to our help, to our rescue, to make sure that these women go back to the farm again. So he has given some money for us to recompensate them to enable them to go to the farm. And this is what the government is supposed to be doing. When individuals are affected, like when farmers lost their produce, the government should create an avenue where compensation will be given to these farmers to encourage them to go back. Some of them are just first-time farmers who are just investing for the first time. Some of them came back from the north, coming back home to resettle, and they have this experience. Most of them will be discouraged to go back to the farm. And you know fully well that we have issue of land clearing in Nigeria. Most of the lands that are available now are deep forests that nobody has really think about opening them up to be given to people to cultivate. And in the north, where we have vast land for grain production and the rest of it, the bandits, the kidnappers have become a threat to the farmers. And this has given us a lot of concern. And we want to beg the government to stop doing lip services, because most of the programs they've told us they are going to be implementing up to now have not materialized, and nobody is saying anything, nobody is telling us anything. We don't even know what the government is up to.
Right,
No
Doctor,
program yet. I mean, even the wheat they promised to do for dry season. We're already approaching rainy season, and that has not taken place.
And Doctor, just give me an idea as an insider why Nigerians are dealing with this soaring inflation when it comes to commodities that we produce or that we cultivate and produce locally. The grains are becoming too expensive to afford. In one of our reports, maize flour went from 8,000 naira per 50 kilogram bag in Kano just some 8 months ago to 45,000 per 50 kg. Just give us an insider's perspective on why food is becoming too expensive for the average households to afford.
Yeah, globally, governments subsidize agriculture. Globally, agriculture is subsidized. And two, we have this issue of insecurity across all states of the nation. And the rise in foreign currency, the dollar, you know what the dollar is to a naira today. And most of the raw materials that we use in producing some of these things are being brought from overseas. The fertilizers, the chemicals that we use here mostly are brought from abroad. And that's really affected the cost of production. And then the insecurity is a major factor. In one of the fora, I was discussing and I told the audience that since we have Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps as an agency of the government that have a department called the Agro Rangers, I think the Agro Rangers should be more empowered, jointly with the local vigilante to provide more securities to our farmers. And then government should also, look at seed production, multiplication of seeds, and then giving quality seeds to farmers at the right time. Most of the challenges we have is that even when government want to intervene, the intervention usually comes very late when there's no need for such interventions again. We can be talking of dry season program. By this time, you have not given seeds, you have not given fertilizer, you have not given anything to the farmers. How many mechanization centers we have in Nigeria? No Nigerian farmer will tell you that he have easy access to farm mechanizations. And that is what is taking a huge amount of money from farmers. You know how much a liter of diesel costs today? Usually we used to do plowing and harrowing below 15,000, but today the case is different. The cost of those things have gone up. And if a farmer will be spending above 500,000-600,000 to do 1 hectare of maize, at the end of the day, it will go back to the consumers because he's going to make sure that he takes back return on his investment. So government should, as a matter of urgent importance, and make available seeds, make available inputs on subsidized. It might not be free. Government can, crash down the prices for these agricultural inputs, and then also create an enabling environment and safety and security of the farmers, and assure these farmers that they are protected, they are safe, people can go to their farm, and encourage more people to also embrace agriculture and see agriculture as another way and another option to to food security and to also eliminate unemployment in the country.
We'll circle back to the question around food security because there is a projection that this year some 26.5 million Nigerians or more are at risk of hunger, and I dare say that from the protests and the lamentations we've seen so far across the country, that is more than likely going to be a reality if the government does not do something urgent to turn the trajectory around. But bringing the conversation back here in the studio, on the idea of subsidy, as Dr. Austin mentioned, give me a sense of what you think in hindsight. Was it a bad idea for the president to have announced the removal of fuel subsidy, especially on Inauguration Day, given how it is the one thing, the first domino that created this ripple effect that we're talking about right now?
I have always been a proponent of removal of fuel subsidy because of the corruption that is around, that has been around it, and have been the inhibitors of our development as a nation. That being said, the declaration of removal of fuel subsidy by Mr. President on that particular day, in hindsight, depends on how you see the cup, half full or half empty. A school of thought would tell you if he didn't do that, he will never do it because the cabal, or rather the vested interests, mafioso in the oil cartel, will ensure that he never even gets to say it. The crisis that will come up will make him not to say it or to go to move to it. Another school of thought will say, well, is to bite the bullet and face the challenges and deal with it. I belong to that school of thought. But that being said, in the school of strategy, they would tell you, don't go to battle unless you are ready. So when Mr. President made that declaration, I believe he might have known but did not dimension the length and the depth and breadth of the expectations of pushing that policy through and making sure that at the end of the day we come out of it.
You don't think there was a risk analysis of any kind?
I am not in his campaign thing. Like I said, the length and breadth and depth to dimension the issues. That's what I don't know whether he did dimension the issues, and to know that there's an element of political will, of execution, of sustainability, of dealing with these key issues of the economy. And while he's dealing with it, like I said, part of the problem is, did Mr. President factor that this journey of barefootedness in hot Sahara desert will include him and his team to be barefooted as well, out of the air condition with Nigerians? If that has happened, and that is happening, Nigerians are ready to go the whole hog, because we know that it will also shorten the timeline of turning around the economy. Definitely the pains we have to go through the pains to come out of it. But there's a mismatch between conceptualization of a solution, which Mr. President did, to get out of that, doldrum of fuel subsidy. But fuel subsidy is just one factor or fraction. It's a fraction of our bigger problems. If you remove fuel subsidy, you have not dealt with the issue of corruption. If you remove the fuel subsidy, you have not dealt with the issue of cost of governance. If you remove fuel subsidy, you have not dealt with the issue of, short to mid-term succor for the common man, or for the average citizen. Sorry, not the common man, but the average citizen. You have not made that provision. Second guessing the citizens that whatever you throw at them, they will take, while the political class or the whatever leadership class it is should still remain in their capsule, air-conditioned capsule, while they dish out these policies for us to absorb, is where I think, with due respect, Mr. President and his team got it wrong.
I believe
there's a misalignment. And I will take you back to what I have said towards the end of last year. I have written about it, I've said about it. And that is the key. All this, fluctuation of the dollar, or the escalation of the value of the dollar, and the free falling of the value of the naira, and all these economic issues we are dealing with, is a lack of alignment between fiscal policy and fiscal discipline. Fiscal discipline is all these things I'm talking about, dealing with collection, prudence, consciousness with regards to our situation. When you have a misalignment with that, and you are just dishing out, you are looking at increasing your taxes, you are doing a tax reform, which means you are going to add, increase the taxness and increase the tax value on the citizen. These are all going to impact on the citizen. But have you been able to rein out all the tax you are supposed to collect from the big businesses, for example?
In the news, the CBN governor, Cardoso, says, this harsh, quote-unquote, reforms will eventually strengthen the naira. So is this one of those situations where we say there's light at the end of the tunnel?
There will be light at the end of the tunnel. I will tell Governor Cardoso, there will only be a light at the end of the tunnel. And I spoke to him also in a column when he was appointed. I congratulated. I said, Mr. Governor, there must be an alignment between fiscal policy, monetary policy, and fiscal discipline. You cannot be trying to struggle to manage our monetary policy while part of the government are busy wasting the resources. And that is a fraction of fiscal discipline. It's like you have a basket, and you are bringing in value into the pile. You are pouring water into the basket, or whatever it is. It's going to waste away. So you must deal with wastages, you must block leakages, you must deal with prudence for you to retain what you have. And so that whatever comes in will also remain and add value to you. So if you continue pursuing monetary policy, you have your fiscal policy in paper. It is fiscal discipline that will practicalize and actualize those policies to have value and impact on the socio-economic well-being of Nigerians. If you don't live with that reality, you will just be doing classroom theory, and it will not work. Right. So in our consciousness as citizens, in the consciousness of leadership, there must be fiscal discipline. And a very key factor of fiscal discipline is the war against corruption, is prudence, is cost containment, and is the empathy and sense of circumspection and discipline by the political class. If they don't do that, all these policies will remain on paper things will continue to go worse. Only God knows what will happen in the next 6 months. But indeed, what is clear now is Nigerians will never be taken for granted again.
Right, okay. We'll circle back to that particular conversation because that sounds like a very loaded comment.
Absolutely.
Bringing back Dr. Austin Maduka to the conversation, when we talk about food security, because most of the protests have been triggered because of soaring food prices, give me a sense of what your projection is as the year continues to take shape. We're in February now, and we're used to, at this time of the year, this is when food items are usually cheaper because the harvests have come in and, you know, the markets are flooded with new commodities that have been freshly harvested. But unfortunately, that's not what we're seeing right now. Also, there's a sense that, you know, bigger corporations, richer individuals are mopping up some of these grains across the markets, across the expressways as they're transported from one market to the other. Give us a sense of what you make of, you know, the issue of food security in this country, especially with this dark looming projection of 26.5 million Nigerians likely facing hunger this year.
Yeah, thank you. You know, food is a right, not a privilege. Every Nigerian have a right to food, and looking at the challenges we are facing currently now, and as you just already said, this period is a season where there should be food in abundance, because this is a harvest period for dry season farmers. But you can see that the reverse is the case, because the problem of the insecurity, which everybody is aware, has really affected our production. And then, like for cassava, usually there is a 3 years glut where people will farm, there's no off-taker, there's no sure off-taker. Two people will farm because of insecurity. Some of them will abandon their farms and run away, and they will not go back there. The headers will graze on the farms, and then that year, the next year, there will be scarcity. And things like Gari flour will go higher. And that's what we are facing currently now because of the insecurity in the land and government not making provision for subsidy and interventions. And the government should quickly, you know, create a program, a dedicated program, a sincere program that will usher in food sufficiency in the land. And the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and the other ministries that have one or two things to do with agricultural activities should, as a matter of national concern, look at how to mitigate these challenges. One, by also engaging the farmers.
It appears that we're having a bit of a network challenge speaking to Dr. Austin Maduka in Anambra. Doctor, I think the connection is much better now, so please proceed.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm saying that the government should create a policy, a sincere policy and a program that will accommodate the farmers, working with the Farmers Association, knowing fully that the Farmers Association are the ones that knows this problem better than the government do. We have the farmers, we know our farmers, we know our challenges. The government should, as quick as possible, we're approaching the rainy season. If we've missed it in the dry season, I don't see any reason why we should also miss the rainy season. The rains are here, and in less than 1 month from now, in the south and southwest and the southeast, there will be rainfall. And before you know it, in the north also there will be rainfall. The government should quickly convene a national emergency food security meeting where every stakeholder in the agricultural sector, the state commissioners of agriculture, the state associations, the governors, to a round table where we'll discuss and look at our individual problems. There's peculiarities of challenges in various states. Some may be access to quality seeds, some may be insecurity, some may be lack of water, and so many challenges like that. The government should sit down and then come up with a policy and a program with the partnership of the associations so that we can see how we can jointly, together, work together as a team, as a people, as a nation to overcome these challenges, because an angry man is a hungry man.
Right. And Doctor, just to double down on that particular note with regards to the government's commitment towards addressing this issue. Last year, July 13, the presidency announced a state of emergency on food insecurity as commodity prices were going up. And according to the then spokesperson of the president, Mr. Dele Alaki, the rise in food inflation on a year-on-year basis was caused by the increase in the price of oil and fat and yam and other commodity prices. He said in the immediate term, the administration intends to deploy some savings from the fuel subsidy removal into the agriculture sector, focusing on revamping the agriculture sector in the country. Between then and now, was there any sort of input that suggests that the administration has done something to recharge the agricultural sector from your view?
Well, I don't know who those that are advising the president. The president made that wonderful speech, and we are very happy that the president has come to the aid of Nigerian farmers, knowing fully well that the Nigerian agricultural sector, and mostly the Nigerian farmers, vote willingly for this president. We worked tirelessly to make sure that President Tinubu emerges as the president of Nigeria. And he assured us that he's going to be a farmer's president. And when he made that declaration, we were very happy. But unfortunately, as the day goes by, we heard that that money has been withdrawn. The president I don't know what under MFLS administration as governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, and that created a lot of fear and anxiety in the land. That most of these farmers refuse to even go to the farm. Some are afraid that they may be arrested by the DSS. Some were afraid because most of them that received that fund from Central Bank of Nigeria under the ABP were told by some of these politicians that that money was a grant. That money was free, that the farmers should go and do whatever they wish to do with the money. Then coming back again and asking them to pay for this money created a lot of anxiety in the land, and many farmers were unable to go back to farm for the fear of getting arrested by the DSS. So that also increased a lot of challenges and worry for Nigerian people and Nigerian farmers. So I think the president should revise that decision and see how he can intervene quickly, to mitigate these current challenges that we're facing and create an enabling environment for people to go back to the farm, especially smallholder farmers, who are the engine room of the Nigerian food sector.
Just to get your quick thought on the projection that I was talking about by the Food and Agriculture Organization, alongside many other United Nations organizations who have spoken to the numbers and the dangers regarding food insecurity in Nigeria. Do you think there's a likelihood that that projection could come through based on what you know as an industry player, that we're not food secure and that millions of people could be facing hunger in the near future?
Well, their projection may be their projection, but that is not our projection. We as a people, we are determined to do the needful. If our government can take drastic measures, that prediction will not work. It will not come to fruition because Nigeria is a country destined by God to do great things. When people think that the worst has happened, that is when Nigeria bounce back. Look at even our football. When people lost, people have no hope again in our team. That is when the team will come back and perform wonderfully well. Nigeria is a country blessed by human and natural resources. I don't see that position coming to fruition because I know that every part of this country you can grow food. The only thing we need is government intervention, the assurance of the government, policies that are human-based policies, and then I don't think that will give us a sleepless night.
Right. I like the Super Eagles analogy. Works every time. Every time I ignore them, they do well. And I guess that is one way to manage our expectations going forward. But, looking at more solution-oriented thinking. Last year, the House of Representatives was mulling this idea of a price control board because of this same particular issue, saying the price of PMS is going up. There appears to be no checks. There appears to be no regulation whatsoever when it comes to price management, or setting a ceiling or setting a floor or something like that regards to price management. Give me a sense of how urgent the administration or people in power need to take the idea of price control seriously, given what we're faced with right now, because this free market sort of philosophy is not working in the best interest of a majority of Nigerians at the moment.
I like the way you landed with the question, because that is the key. The government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu obviously is driving or intends to drive a free market economy. Before he became the president, some actions have been taken by previous administrations to move Nigeria in that direction of free market economy, realizing that the level of corruption, the indolence, and all that has rendered our public sector more incompetent to drive the key economic sectors, and therefore to leave governance for governance and to drive economy and business for the enterprises, which is okay. But it appears most times in Nigeria we run a paradox type, thought process or principle. It is going to be, I'm very interested to see how that would play out with regards to price control board or whatever. When on one hand, we just closed that, we have an active petroleum industry, act, PIA and all that are saying they are freeing it. We are privatizing all over the place. We are concessioning all over the place. We are bringing in FDIs and foreign direct investors that are coming with clauses that gives them, those locals, to have some level of, span and control with regards to pricing and all that. And then you have a legislature that wants to come and work. Well, I hope they will be able to be creative, but the truth is that in reality, it will not work, even if it is, tenable. Why? Because of the endemic corruption in the system. We have been having laws in this country and regulations, Abdullahi. But the execution, law enforcement, execution of the law, ensuring that the things are done by the responsible organizations are the issues in Nigeria. So they can go and continue churning out these laws. The price control board, without wanting not to sound so paranoid, is not going to work. Because on one hand, the law of demand and supply will override the price control. We have seen it happen. Let's even take the oil and gas sector, right from the military administrations. The moment you try to exercise control, they hold on to the product. And they create all the bottlenecks around the value chain and the supply chain, and render the citizens and even the government helpless. And then you have to come back to the negotiation table and budge in for them to increase the price, you see? So the law of demand and supply is going to continue to play a critical role. That being said, I don't want to sound idealistic, because the situation we are in this country is beyond idealism or optics. We need to be very practical and, tell Nigerians what will work. What will work is continue working on the fundamental issues that have not been working in terms of governance, in terms of doing the right thing. Otherwise, this board or whatever will now become another cost, because you set up the board, you set up a board to run it, CEOs and people, and then people will come and start using it as a vehicle for corruption. And that will do what? Will add cost, because when these people want to add cost, they will engage all the stakeholders. And at the end of the day, the pricing will go back, the cost will go back to the consumers. So I think the focus should be for Mr. President to continue looking at how, to sustain this economic, diversification, economic expansion, a drive to turn around the economy while dealing with endemic corruption at the same time, and dealing with issues of execution of things that are supposed to be done, how and when. Indeed, Mr. President intends to drive a performance-driven government. I think if he starts shaking some trees in the next couple of weeks or months, it will put people in place to do the right thing. But importantly, Minimum wage issue, thankfully, Vice President is chairing that. We intend to see an outcome that will help, the average workers in Nigeria to have succor with regards to cost, because it is a very, very big issue. People are really struggling. This is the short to mid-term intervention, and also to ensure that government has a robust strategy and policy in the mid-term. Mid-term means by the end of this year or by next year to come out. I don't want us to end up running a palliative economy. I want us to come and run a proper economy at the end of the day with all the right things in place. Again, landing fiscal discipline.
Right. But you get a sense that from what is happening, for lack of a better expression, it's as if the inmates are the ones running the asylum right now. And, without that price control mechanism, things are only going in one direction,
yes.
and that's up.
Yes.
Right? The report we had in Kano with regards to corn flour, for instance, within 8 months, there's a 500% appreciation in the price, from 8,000 to 45,000. I mean, surely.
Yeah.
I mean, even with, Dr. Maduka's explanation about cost of production and things like that, I mean, within the space of just 8 months, that is way too much. And you get a sense that sometimes, because there are no checks, there's no one regulating, people can just wake up today as an association of commodity producers or manufacturers and say, listen, let's take it up, because we also have to, deal with A, B, C, and D as an economic variable. Do you not get a sense that, no one is in charge of pricing in this country?
I tell you what I will do if I'm part of Mr. President's advisors. Like I said, the fundamental issues is not just the president, it's a societal ill, the erosion of our value system. So I agree. Shouldn't we have a mechanism that should be controlling these people? But if we continue chasing those without dealing with the foundational issues, we'll continue to face this in perpetuity. What am I saying? We have an inflation that is galloping, Abdullahi, hovering around 30% by end of year. The projections are saying it will come down to 25% by next year, 15%. That left with the issue we have on ground, the cost of borrowing and all that. Just day before yesterday, I was in a forum, international forum, and the projections are changing. We may likely be facing the vagaries of inflation till maybe June or July. It will be galloping. Now, you have to look at what are the factors that drive inflation. Cost of production, availability of the products, which we've been speaking about, food insecurity, how people in the farmers are paying 3 types of taxes, or 4. They pay tax to the local government, they pay to the state government, they pay to the federal government, and they pay bandits and terrorists. You can't expect those people to have the products, either the farmers or the off-takers, and you expect the product to remain at a quote-unquote reasonable price, if you take it from that baseline perspective in terms of inflation. In terms of production, power is not available. People have to resort to self-help to generate power, to be able to produce. So those factors that drive production in the economy are things we need to look at and be sincere to ourselves with. But I agree there should be a measure of containment and control. But how do you expect control where you yourself, you are not controlling yourself? Right. To the extent that you can be able to exercise that control. If there was security, for example, then we have national security. Today, the federal capital territory of this country is under siege. So how do you expect to exercise those controls? Well, so to speak, because like I wrote in my column 2 weeks ago, the residence of the chief of staff of the president of Nigeria was boggled 3 years ago, Abdullahi. I'm saying this consciously with all sense of responsibility without demeaning the government. But if you don't face your realities, you don't start moving in the right direction to solve your problem. Those culprits that boggled the house of the chief of staff, that is just a stone throw from the president, commander-in-chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, have not been apprehended. That is the last line of defense for Mr. President and his family. And that tells you, this is just an indicator of how bad things have become. The president and everybody in the last 2 weeks, including the media, have been speaking about 70% one thing: security in Abuja. Can you see the distraction? Can you see the depth of the issue? Why I say Abuja is under siege? My driver was almost robbed at Aso Drive Junction, coming from Aso Drive, that traffic light that will take you left to Federal Secretarial and the 3-arm zone, Eagle Square, right towards the Hilton. That is the core of security in Nigeria. You have the presidential villa, you have the DSS headquarters and all that. And he was coming out from an errand to come and meet me at the Hilton at 7:30 p.m. Right on that bridge, those guys came and almost robbed him. It was the driver behind him that flashed the light and told him to zoom off. Because of course, after 9, it is very difficult to stay at the traffic light. You will be mobbed. If that will happen in Nigeria, these two scenarios, I dare say, for one or further phrase, we are under siege. Now, if you don't deal with these security issues, people cannot go to farm. People cannot produce. What will happen? Shortage, demand and supply. When you have less supply and there's high demand, what will happen to the price? It will escalate. Inflation is galloping. Security have made production to be less. So there are a lot of factors that are driving this. I'm not excusing it for the marketers or the business people, but I'm just being practical, okay, about these things. And then when you come to governance, when you have over-invoicing in terms of procurement and all that, in cahoots with the contractors and the people in government, then at the end of the day, products and services also provisions will be high on the who? Consumers. So that goes to corruption. So these factors are very key, while the National Assembly will come out with a very creative idea of exercising control, but you cannot control when you yourself are not in charge.
Okay, let's get the final analysis from Dr. Austin Maduka in Anambra as we begin to wrap up the conversation. Your final analysis on the glass half full version. If you have a glass half full version, what can you tell Nigerians regarding how there's perhaps a solution within all of these lamentations that we've been engaged in this morning?
I want to beg the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria to please of national importance, create an enabling environment for the Nigerian farmers to go back to the farm this season, one by providing them a quick intervention on food, seedlings, fertilizer mostly, mechanization. There should be more centers, that is accessible to the farmers to make available tractorization for their farms. We should also look at how we can also have
unfortunately, we're going to have to end it there. But thank you most kindly, Dr. Austin Maduka, who is a farmer and also the General Secretary of National Agriculture Commodity Project and the President and founder of the Community Allied Farmers Association of Nigeria. Thank you most kindly for the analysis and for your input into this conversation. And as always, Baba Yusuf, good to have you back. Thank you most kindly for stopping by this morning, and we do appreciate your analysis and insight on this conversation.
Always a pleasure, Abdullah.
Right.